We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first item is the minutes from the last meeting. Do I have any additions or changes?
I just want to change, it says we're still working on street light replacement. We weren't replacing any lights.
Okay. Any other changes or additions? Do I have a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion with Paul's clarification.
Is there a second?
Second?
Properly moved and seconded by Dave and Paul. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Presentation of the bills. I am taking out the Lowry bill, so that one can come off. There was some clarification that needs to happen on that one before we can look into it. Any other changes or additions? Questions? If not, do I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Jason to accept, I assume with that one off, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're going to add in, just because I noticed we missed it, the disconnect list. Do I have a motion to accept the disconnect list? Which I will say, the disconnect list looks much better. Much, much better.
I was gonna say it's the smallest one I've seen here.
Yes.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Moved by Dave, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Jason to accept the disconnect list. Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Yes for me and Dave.
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll start with Nicole tonight.
Okay. On the airport side of things, things are going quite well at the airport. Strata's putting the finishing touches together and cleaning up. They were just having a board meeting when he emailed this off, but they were discussing the construction project, more of a reflection on it, like what went well, what would we do next time. They went over outstanding bills and funding, state federally eligible funding for future projects and needs for spring of 2024. They'll put that together. And they've got snow removal. Looks like Ray Weber is going to help Donnie Hansen with the primary snow removal, so thank you for that. And other than that, we know Justin Kleckner had left and Donnie Hansen had filled his seat for the remaining term. So that's all I have on the airport side. Just good things still moving along. And the sewer, we'll wait until we get down to 7B. That's all I
Thank you,
have.
Nicole. Dave?
I have nothing tonight.
Paul?
I just have, I'd like to give a thank you out to the city, John especially, and the guys that helped with getting dirt and everything leveled out in Railroad Park. I think it really looks nice. I want to thank them for what they did there. It really looks good. There was, we had the tree in there, and at the last HBA meeting, we were looking for volunteers, and the gals at the city, you know, are willing to help decorating with that Christmas tree. So I thank them very much for doing that, and I'm sure they're going to have somebody from the city crew helping with that. So we thank them for helping out on that side of it. On the electrical, we are going to get back into the load controls again this winter as soon as we're able to get that arranged with the person that's going to do it. And then we'll be discussing, when we get time, what's the plans for next year on the electrical side, a little bit more closer on what we want to do for next year. So HEDC, we're still working on plan to kind of get some things moving on maybe some type of incentive program or something that we could maybe help with over on the west side project, if there's anything that we can do to help motivate sale of lots out there and so on and so forth. That's all in the talking stage right now. And that's all I have other than what's on the agenda.
Thank you, Paul. Jason?
I have nothing tonight.
A couple of things for you guys tonight. One, the planning and zoning have a couple individuals that they sent out building permits to do. They didn't show up. And so they're asking that you guys take action on that, and they're hoping that the first step would be to just have JR send a letter asking and requesting one more time before we do anything else with those.
So what did they not do?
There's two places in town where the building permits have not been issued, but there is building work going on. And so in the past, we've always just sent them out, and usually that got them in, but both of those have been sent out and nothing had been returned. So that was their hope, is that you guys would accept that and then have JR send the next step as one more friendly reminder.
That's good. That's all we need to do? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have an issue. That's,
Okay.
they should have their permits.
So if you're okay with that, it's, I don't have the addresses, but they're both businesses right over here, and they both have storage containers that were put on. So I think a motion to do that would be good.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Paul, to send a reminder to those from JR, and JR, I'll get you those addresses.
Very good.
Which reminds me, I think I have a couple addresses to get you to. Is there any other discussion? Dave?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries. The Lake Agassiz Water Authority, I just put that in the folder for you guys to look at as well.
We're not doing this. She probably don't need you to leave, but I brought it later. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing, man? I'm doing enough. So I brought the agenda deal, I got Soprano here. Want to start with slots. Tony and the boys gave me this, so go with that. Make sure that Mr. Ruther's in it. I got it. Yeah, how you doing, man?
Next, we'll have,
Can actually play it.
Casey had got the letter too, but I'd also requested, did we put it on? With 1881, I don't know if you guys remember, some of you were on, some of you weren't. We did a sign off on the community development loan. And so they've had some issues with that. They need to send it back. They just want to make sure that we are okay with taking the lien off on that portion of it. So if you're okay with that, I'd prefer that we vote on that, just to make sure that it's official to release 1881 extraction for that.
Is JR, do you have any opinions on that?
I did review this. It looks like it's in order here. They just want to return that equipment. I'm sure we have a lien as a general filing. If we need to do it so they can keep in business, I think we should. And if we're already in third position, it's not like we're losing much there, so.
Okay.
To have a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Paul makes the motion to accept. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Paul, seconded by Nicole. Any other discussion? Jason?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries. The borough statue, we're getting that taken care of. I know it's on the agenda, but I was just gonna it got moved, and so we'll get that revamped and fixed. I have it up at the school right now to get taken care of, so.
Be warm for the winter then.
It'll be in a nice warm home for the winter. Once I get it inside, it's still sitting outside. Reminder, December 1st is John's retirement party. If you guys would like to donate for a gift, just drop something off in the office and then we'll put something together for him. But I think everything is set. Okay. Next we have Jim.
I have nothing to tonight.
Okay. JR?
Nothing for me.
Casey?
Nothing for me.
Jason, anything from the sheriff's office?
No, sir.
Steve, you're up.
Thanks for everybody passing their time off to me.
You are welcome.
It's on. So there's three projects I want to talk about. And the one of them is the water sewer project. Breidenbach is up there boring the lagoon or getting set up to bore a discharge into the lagoon. And then once they complete that, that should be the majority of the heavy labor work they got to do, and the rest would just be cleanup and some warranty work. But we'll kind of hold on to some of the budget until next spring, make sure he gets all the seeding and the cleanup done. But that was took a long time to get through it, but luckily we got a little bit of nice weather here to get him through. The second project is the sidewalk for I-29. They bid the project on Friday, and it came in under budget. So the city's portion of their 19% is reduced a little bit. Right now, the DOT is looking at the paperwork, make sure everything's in place, mainly their disadvantaged business enterprise program. They'll, once they get that all reviewed, they'll let the city know that it's okay to write up a contract on that. And the city's share right now is sitting at just a little over $67,000. You guys should have it in your packets, I think.
Was the one that Casey handed out at the end. And then it's 38 or something for the engineering.
Yep, so then there'll be an
Office.
additional $38,000. The city has to pay for their own engineering as part of that. So I do have a task order here for the $38,850, which would be the engineering for the construction services, construction staking, record drawings, construction observation, and that should get us through the rest of the project. The project won't start until this spring, but the contractor that was selected, they're pretty good size, so they should be able to get in here and complete the project and get out at a reasonable amount of time next spring. So what we want tonight is since we're waiting on the DOT to do their final review, if we could get a notice to award from the city, subject to DOT's final review, then they'll do their final review and approve it, and then maybe at the next commission meeting, we can bring a contract back to officially get a contract going with the contractor. Is there any questions on the project before we ask for a?
What's the timeline, it's going to start next spring?
Yep. I think we gave them most of the summer to do the project. But it'll start May, or I think it was May to August we gave them.
Okay. And they're doing curb and gutter on that too, sidewalks.
They're doing the sidewalks, they're gonna redo some of the driveways, because the slope are too steep, the cross slopes on them. So they're taking out part of the driveways and straightening them out a little bit. Some of the driveways over by like Casey's and them are busted up, and they'll take them out and replace them. And that'll be a 7-inch concrete section, and then the rest of the sidewalks are all concrete. And then DOT is gonna come through with the sidewalk, and we'll put our sidewalks in, DOT will come in and do the bridge, and then they're gonna wait a year before they do the interconnect between the two, because they're afraid that when they do all the embankment between the bridge and where the sidewalk is, it's gonna settle. According to the soils that are out there, they thought it could settle up to 1 foot. So what they're gonna do is, when the interstate, I think it's north, when they're doing interstate north, they'll do the overpass, and then the next year when they come back and do interstate southbound, then they'll pave the interconnect between the sidewalk and the bridge. So there'll be a gap there where we have a sidewalk to nowhere for a little while, but. So tonight, we're just asking for a notice to award, subject to DOT's review.
Do I have a motion to approve the notice to award with DOT's approval?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Jason to approve pending DOT. Is there any other discussion? Nicole?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
And a yes for me. And then we need a motion to approve the task order for the engineering work, correct?
Yep.
Where's that paperwork at, or that number? Is it on here?
It is,
It's 38,850.
Is that 38,350?
38,850. That was probably in an email. I just got the task order put together tonight. Here's the task order that's signed by operations manager.
So if you guys want to pass it around. I think it came in after. You guys might have been out, so.
So what'll happen next after the award, I'll get you a standard template, Levi, to sign
Okay.
for the notice to award. And then DOT will concur, and then we'll write a contract to the contractor, and then they'll sign that, and we'll get that back out to DOT.
Steve, do you know how much lower it was? You said this was lower. Do you remember what the original was that we looked at for that amount, by chance?
I was thinking it was 90.
It was like $30,000 under, I think.
Okay. So
Yeah, I was
it's
thinking it was
kinda
90
flush
till-
with the fees then,
Yeah.
so that's not bad. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't have the original one on here anywhere.
the second one. I didn't know that was the original. Oh.
What's that engineer's estimate was 37.75.
So yeah, you're go soon.
And their bid was 35.33. What's on this sheet, Nicole?
Okay.
Can you forward that? Can you forward that when you get it?
I can do that
What
right
he's
now.
got there, or have a copy of it or something?
Yep.
Do I have a motion to approve those task orders?
I'll make the motion.
Oh, these were the other. You must not have sent that other.
No, I just got it signed at like 4 o'clock.
So she'll send it.
Once they're all signed,
Step
I'll
up
send,
the game.
redistribute it.
Is there, moved by Dave, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Paul. Is there any other discussion? Jason?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Motion carries.
Thank you. And then the third project is our stormwater master plan update. And I brought Jesse back to talk about what we came up with for alternatives. And of course, since he's the stormwater master of the master plan, we decided to bring him on a rainy day. Drop the mic.
Good evening, everyone. Have a pack of maps. Okay. What is the trick with this?
Is that the one that's bad? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I wasn't doing that for him. Jeez. Take that, Steve. Okay, so I think it was 14 months ago I was here talking about this as a conceptual study. Now back today to go over what we've found so far, what we've put together for alternatives, improvement alternatives, and maybe start to discuss next steps or give you an idea of what next steps might look like. So I'm going to try to walk you through the 8 figures I brought. Focus will be more on a couple, but just to give you the full picture, we'll kind of step through all of them. So starting with figure number 1. So what we're showing here, this is existing conditions. So this is everything exactly as it is today with a 5-year rainfall event. So that's around a 3-inch rainfall event. And the focus of this figure is on how the roads are functioning. So you'll see there are sort of lines following all of the streets. And we have those categorized based on the depth of water over the center of the street. So where you see yellow, that's showing that there's 0 to 6 inches of inundation at the peak of the storm over the center of the road. Where there's orange, that's showing 6 to 12 inches. And then where there's red, that's anywhere that has greater than a foot of water over the center of the road. So sort of the big takeaways, and I guess there could be a lot of different takeaways, but main takeaways, there's an area south of Caledonia, sort of all the way down to 4th Avenue, just west of Main Street. And there's a large area of the orange and the red, so a lot of inundation, a lot of standing water. And when we're talking about over the center of the road, the gutters are even deeper. So a lot of inundation in that area. And then getting farther away, there's an area straight north on 2nd Avenue. It's just orange, but sort of a localized area where there's quite a bit of inundation. Getting to the east of Main Street, kind of looking the top right of this map by 2nd Avenue Northeast, or on 2nd Avenue Northeast, there's a fairly large area with red shading. And then to the south on Loyal Avenue, also in a stretch of red. So that, as we sort of got into this, that is the rainfall event that we use to assess street function. So with the goal sort of being to understand where it is today, or how it functions today, and then set goals for improving those conditions. Let's flip over to the second map, figure number 2. So this is also a map showing existing conditions, and now we're showing a 100-year rainfall event. So that's just over 6 inches of rain. Now on the larger 100-year rainfall event, our focus was on structures. So you'll notice that the blue on this map is significantly greater, more widespread than on the previous map. And then we're making an effort to shade in what we're calling structures at risk. So this is just a desktop analysis where we have a pretty good idea of how the water sort of gets distributed over the land surface, but we don't have any survey information of the actual structures. So when we say structures at risk, these are structures that, based on a desktop analysis, we can see that those inundation areas are getting close to or touching the outlines of those structures. So the red shading, those are what we're calling primary structures. So those would be homes, businesses. And then the purple shading are what we're calling secondary structures. So garages, sheds, things like that. And then just a couple maybe caveats, or a caveat to this figure is it doesn't differentiate when we're talking especially primary residences or primary structures. It doesn't differentiate if those are homes with basements, slab on grade, mobile homes. And you'll see sort of in the top left where we note that there's a row of homes that are shaded red, and those are actually mobile homes. So the actual impact of those structures would be probably negligent. It's just, as we're looking from above, the water is touching the visual footprint of that, but really it's elevated. They're mobile homes, so they're likely elevated and not actually flooding. But either way, the reds, the purples, those are structures potentially at risk during that 100-year storm event. Are there any questions so far? I think my goal here is to sort of go over all of this, give you something to chew on, and maybe give you a better idea at the end than you had at the beginning, but it might be something. I think even when I get these figures, it takes me a while to understand exactly what I'm looking at. So it might be something that you have more questions on later on. Okay, so with sort of the existing conditions, or today, how things function today, generally understood, what we wanted to do was identify improvement goals, or set goals for improvements, sort of balancing reasonable benefits, standards that we see throughout the state and country, essentially balancing that with what is realistic, what's feasible, knowing that there's certain limits to the improvements that we can make, and while keeping them constructible and feasible. So the goals we set were to eliminate as much of that red and orange as possible on that first map, and then to reduce the number of structures to the extent possible on the second 100-year storm event. So let's flip to figure 3. So figure 3 is going to present what we're calling alternative 1. So alternative 1 is a gravity storm sewer approach to all of that inundation. So essentially, to the extent that we can, gravity storm sewer is the desired approach. It has certain limitations in cities like Hillsboro, where in the areas that we're looking at, the inundation, it's relatively flat, so we're limited in the slope we can put on the pipe and other things. But to the extent possible, we wanted to understand what would a gravity storm sewer alternative look like. And so if you see all of the red lines on this figure, those are new pipes that we would be proposing in areas where there isn't currently a storm sewer pipe. And then the blue pipes are replacement pipes, so areas where there are already storm sewer pipes, but we're just proposing a larger pipe to replace what exists. And then you'll see sort of orange gold circles kind of scattered on the map. Those are intersections where there are currently inlets and smaller storm sewer. So at all of those circles, we would be recommending additional inlets and some improvements to the lateral smaller storm sewer pipes.
So on that red proposed lines, like down there on Main Street, now there's 84 inches there now?
So the red is where there's not currently a pipe, and
Okay.
that's, I'm not going to say it's what we're proposing, it's what would be needed to bring the system into compliance with the goals that were set.
And what's there, you don't know what's there now, though?
Nothing. So where
Oh,
there's red,
nothing there
there's
in the red.
nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So where there's red, there's currently no pipe. Where there's blue, there's a pipe that we are replacing. Does that help, Paul?
Oh, yeah, yep.
Okay. And then, so going down to the southeast corner, or bottom left of this map, to the Loyal Avenue, McDonald Drive area. So the fix there is a little bit different, or the recommendations. The options are relatively limited in that area. We essentially have 2 alternatives for Loyal Avenue. One is a lift station, and really, as we got into the lift station option to solve the issues on Loyal Avenue, it just gets very expensive very quickly. And so given those numbers, we didn't view that as a very realistic fix. So what we did look at was constructing a swale, sort of a small ditch that connects Loyal Avenue to the ditch on the north side of 7th Avenue. And, it's sort of similar to gravity storm sewer. It's desirable in that there's no pump needed, and it did provide a lot of benefit, which we'll get into. And then staying in that same area, there's sort of the red dash line in the backyards of Loyal Avenue, and or the backyards between Loyal and McDonald. So there we're essentially just proposing like a perforated under drain, some sort of small system in those backyards to better collect the drainage.
Would that tie into the existing that's there now?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, essentially just allow it a path to drain out.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, let's flip to number 4, and we can kind of probably breeze through these a little quicker, but really the big takeaway here is that essentially all of the red has gone away. There's a small portion on the far northeast corner that it sort of remained but was deemed unimpactful. But all of the red streets are gone under that alternative. Most of the orange is gone or much better. And so, big picture, that option makes the road inundation better. I probably should have elaborated on this more. If you look at that on Figure 3, the pipe sizes get huge. So we have 84-inch pipes where you mentioned, Paul, and that's really giant for storm sewer. So stepping back, we wanted to look at this and understand what would be needed for gravity storm sewer. But as we got into it, the answer was essentially we need a lot, and it may not be feasible to do a gravity storm sewer option. So jumping ahead to Figure 5 quick, still looking at that option with all the storm sewer, large storm sewer pipe. Again, sort of same story. If you're comparing these, makes everything a lot better. The number of structures at risk is reduced fairly significantly, and even those that are still at risk, you could say that risk has been reduced. Then let's jump on to Figure 6. So understanding that probably a gravity storm sewer option, a pipe option, may be constructible, likely isn't feasible, and it's just a huge undertaking. We tried to think outside the box and look at different options. And so what we're calling Alternative 2 still includes some pipe improvements, but it also includes construction of 3 detention ponds, but they're really surcharge ponds. And so what we mean by that is typically a pond, the water goes into the pond and then goes into the storm sewer system. The way these ponds would work is that when the storm sewer system is sort of overloaded, surcharging, it would push the water back up into these surcharge basins where they can sit, wait for the rest of it to make its way out to the Goose River. The burden on the system goes down, and then I'm doing it again. And then it goes out of the ponds back through the storm sewer system. So sort of another way of thinking about it is it takes what today sits in the streets and inundates the streets, yards, and instead it gets it into the system but puts it into these ponds while it waits for capacity in the system to take it to the river. So if you're looking at the 3 ponds shown on this map, it's important to note that these are just very conceptual, and even from our standpoint as we were assessing it, the exact location of those ponds is much less impactful than the general size and connection to the storm sewer. So the pond on the south, the takeaway here would be a pond in that general area more than it would be a pond shaped like that in that exact spot. Jumping to the pond kind of to the top left, that pond is being shown just on the west side of the courthouse. So less flexibility in that. We're fairly limited with areas to place a pond in that area of town. That said, we have looked at a few other potential ideas and intend to include some flexibility in that ultimate placement. And then jumping to the east, sort of the long, narrow blue pond, that is on the north side of the school property. And again, same story, the area of the red pipe connecting to it, the placement of that pond can be very flexible. It's just essentially providing an area for the storm sewer to back up into. So the shape could change dramatically, and the location could change as well, depending on the needs of that site. And in both alternatives, the improvements up north by 2nd Avenue and down south by Loyal and McDonald, those stay the same in each. Any initial thoughts, questions on alternative 2 are just terribly confused.
What's the size of the swale on the south side there?
Oh, that's a good question, Paul. I want to say, do you remember exact dimensions, Steve?
No, not the swales, but, you know, when he talks about them being ponds, they're actually probably just more of a swale area. They'd be dry ponds, being mowed. And then the back slopes, you know, like if we're going through the school property or something like that, the back slope's gonna be probably 5-to-1 or something more gradual, so just more looks like a dip. And, you'd be able to mow it, it would stay dry. It's not gonna be a wet pond. It wouldn't be a hazard for drownings and stuff. It's, you know, once, like you're saying, once the inlets fill up with water, instead of coming up onto the street, it's just gonna push out to a pipe that's open into a lower area. It would just fill up into that, and then once the water goes down, the pipe's already sloped out, and it'll just, the water will go up with that. And like, the ponds are, depending on the area we get and the size, we just have to design it the best we can. Like, if we go into the school area, maybe it's more of an artistic or creative swale that goes around an open area in the school that they can build into their landscaping and stuff. The other 2 areas, it all depends on how much land is accessible.
And the 48 and the 36 inches on the one over on the east, that's 48 inches. That's the depth of it, or what is?
So that's the diameter of the pipes. Yep. Same thing.
Okay, so you're gonna have the pipe underneath the swell then, or running underneath that area?
Just going right into it. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Paul, sorry, I don't remember exactly, but I want to say it's 8 to 10 feet wide, that swale, and like 1 to 2 feet deep. It's going to be in that ballpark. I have to check to give you the exact dimension, but it's not like it's 4 or 5 feet deep or anything like that.
Because I assume it would be whatever the street level is at there,
Right.
and then gradually slope
Down
down to the ditch.
very little grade to work with.
Yep.
Yeah. The 48, yeah. Even on this alternative, we still need big pipe. The good thing compared to that all pipe option is 48's a lot smaller than 84, and we have a lot less of it. But yeah, even 48-inch storm sewer is not small.
And even on if you look where it says on the northeast corner, they had to go with a
Right.
shortened or flatter pipe to try to get the volume that they needed. So we didn't have to go with a bigger 60-inch, or I don't even think you could by the.
Yeah, right. I can elaborate on that, Levi. Glad that you pointed that out. So yeah, that note at the top right that says triple 26 by 32 arch pipe. So what's going on there is we needed a certain amount of capacity, but we had very little depth of cover to work with on the pipes. So these are arch pipes, essentially shaped sort of like an egg turned on its side, or an arched bridge. Just a way to get more capacity and less depth, and we needed triple. What's that?
Like a squash pipe, like they call it.
Yeah, exactly.
That line over there, where would that pipe be going? It looks like it's in the yards. Is it? No, but going to the west more. Where you got 30-inch in red, and you got 30-inch in blue, where you got the inlet. Right. Yeah. It's in the yard, so you're going to be going in the yard.
Well, replacing the pipe, we'll just find the path of least resistance with the other utilities and stuff there, and try to stay off private property as much as we can. If we have to get an easement to put an additional pipe in, that's what we have to do.
Is that 48 inch up in the northeast corner, is that one pipe, or is that both pipes?
236, right?
That's a good question, Jim. I'm pretty sure it's replacing one, but it could be replacing both. I think it's one, but definitely have that answer. Just not right in my head right now. Sorry.
It's amazing you can get that much drop right in that area to
Right.
get that to work.
Yeah, grade and depth of cover were a struggle in a lot of these areas.
Mhm.
That's another reason that it was still red in a lot of the maps as well. Water out there.
So I really think, figures 3 and 6 are the main two figures. We haven't even covered 7 and 8, but you're really, the takeaway with figure 7 and 8 are very similar to the gravity option of, or the results from alternative 1. It removes all the red from the 5-year event in the streets and improves the inundation in the 100-year, or reduces the risk to structures. So you sort of minor differences, but equivalent alternatives in the big picture for the improvements throughout the city. Steve, I miss anything else?
No, we just to elaborate on, you looked at the county property there, where the county courthouse is, and there's a couple other green areas around there, and I think there's 2 or 3 different spots we looked at, and it just didn't do as good of a job as the one, the county area there. But the big step is see which land you can acquire and see where you can put some stuff. But
So what we have to decide or move forward with is which option you would like to move forward with. I have assumption of which one you would like to. And if we do that, if we go with option on figure 6, then we need to work with the county and start figuring out what their plans are with that land to the west of the courthouse, so we can determine what they're going to do with it and if we need to move sooner or later with it, so we're not trying to double up, or they put something in and then we have to pay to get it tore out. And the other key thing that I had seen was, no matter what we do, the swale should go in, so that'd be something that we could start working on this winter to get lined up to get put in. That's pretty easy. It'll take JR longer to get the paperwork done than it'll probably take them to dig the swale.
I'll test that.
yeah, so that would just be acquiring an easement across the property there, and there's kind of it is an open spot there. Yeah. As far as completing the master plan, we'll still keep all the alternatives in it, so you can see, future commissions can see that, more stuff is looked at and analyzed and stuff, but, I think one of the takeaways moving forward is maybe have, the commission start reaching out to these landowners and seeing what's available for bonding and stuff.
You said the swale over down south was 8 to 10 feet wide. I know you said how deep it was too.
That's what I remember. I'm guessing it's like a 6 to 10 foot wide.
No, but I mean the depth of it.
Probably 1 to 2 feet. I think that's all we had. I could be wrong. I mean,
I think it'd probably be close to the depth of the pipe.
Right.
Like 4 or 5 feet, 4 feet maybe. But
maybe it might be up to 4, and it depends where we're looking at in the swale too, right?
Can you go south of 7th Avenue, or is that too far away? In case that landowner is no more.
Oh, you mean for that, for the southern pond,
South.
dry pond south? So I think, that's the type of thing that we could look at, Jim, and as Steve and I were talking about next steps, maybe even a typical approach would be we would take some of these that we've looked at, we looked at a couple other options with green space, and we would document all that. My concern, or the concern, is that then you start to talk with those landowners and you're not left with any viable options, and then things like that come up and we didn't include it in the plan. So I think that would be one benefit of maybe just a temperature check on some of the landowner willingness while we're still working on it, because then we could look at that. We could pretty easily at this point extend the pipe, run an alternative where we extend the pipe south or something and put a pond south of 7th. So yeah.
Yeah, if the pond went south, you probably have to run a overflow pipe or a pressure relief pipe off of the one by 4th and bring it down to the pond just to get some relief off of there. And then if we have enough depth to take the water down 7th, because once you get down that far, we're not going back north again.
That would be like
Right.
going across the highway, wherever that's over to the army too, that's quite a ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the pond by the courthouse, that would just be in the lawn area? Is that what I'm taking?
Ideally.
That's the footprint that's shown here conceptually. Yeah.
But if, at one time they talked about putting in a parking lot, so then we'd have to look at an underground storage unit instead, which would be beneficial if that's the route we needed to go, or if we can change outside parking along the courthouse. I mean, those are the conversations we gotta have with them to try to figure that out.
Yeah, if they're planning a parking lot there, maybe you can add diagonal parking around the outside, to give them the same stalls that they were gonna put on the same lot.
You're not making things easy for us.
But I think this was extremely helpful for us when we go to do our street assessments, street projects. We know where we need to tear up and add things in, so we're not going back and redoing things.
And we did notice that there was a lot of intersections where the inlets were just undersized. We weren't getting enough water in.
And Levi, when we put together sort of building on your point, when we put together the master plan, the idea is to sort of separate these out and make it very clear what improvements need to be done in conjunction with others and what can be done independently. So like you said, the Loyal Avenue fixes, those are consistent among alternatives and they stand alone. So you can do that whenever, independent of the other improvements. Similarly, a lot of those orange circles, a lot of those could be done now and provide some benefit. So we'll separate that out. And just sort of, so that it's not like you need to go in and do all of this at once to see any benefit. And likewise, so you don't go in and do part of one and expect benefit, where we would have been able to say you need to do these 2 other parts to actually realize the benefit.
And when we looked at Loyal Avenue a couple of years ago, we were going to spend a lot more in that, doing that back yard drainage, and then I think there was even a lift station that was going to have to go in to do it, and we're able to take that out by doing this. So.
It still has backyard drain though.
Right, but we take out the lift station that was planned to go in. We had to upsize the lift station in order to make it work.
Lift station improvements, yeah. Then some of the storm sewer stuff, if it ends up, a lot of these improvements going through special assessments, then some of these get tacked on to, future paving projects, and that way the special assessment process would work a little better on funding it. Unless you have a budget to tackle little parts of it at a time.
Just full of statements.
And you guys got the
Is there
45-minute,
any
30-minute.
drawback from doing one over the other? Like anything that we would want to be aware of for results, end results?
The pipe versus the ponds.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just speaking generally, to the extent that you can utilize gravity storm sewer mains, that's great, right? It takes the water straight to the river. You don't have to deal with footprints of ponds or any, pond maintenance. In this case, those pipes are just so large that I really think it just would likely get too expensive. And there are challenges constructing pipes, installing pipes 84-inch in diameter. That alternative also, I guess if I look at it, so I guess it's only one, but it also includes a crossing of the railroad, which sort of adds another challenge to it. And that's that crossing. So figure 3, if you see the red 84-inch going along first that crosses the railroad tracks, that's also a huge pipe to go under the railroad, and it's an important part of everything that was going on here, because what it's doing is it's sort of all those red pipes are connecting to, I don't know, just getting too into it. So there's an existing pipe that goes up Main and then outfalls into the Goose. So this was connecting the new pipes to that, but also going under the railroad and connecting to another pipe on First that goes to the Goose, and then also putting another new pipe to the Goose, which is the 260s in red going all the way to the river.
Right.
And that was, so we really couldn't avoid that. That was an important part, that we essentially gave the water 3 outlets to the river.
Okay.
And again, the reason these pipes get so big is there's a lot of water, and B, they're just very flat. Huge pipes set really flat. So
Some of them might not be able to be built that large either, with the sanitary sewer.
Right.
And the other stuff around at the same time.
Right, we weren't directly looking at what might be in the street and conflicting with it. So, aside from that, aside from like just the general convenience of storm sewer taking it to the river, ponds are also very common, and there's really nothing exceptional about these. They're not exceptionally deep, or the one on the south is fairly large, but there's nothing. None of them are out of the ordinary. So the way that this alternative 2 provides essentially the same benefit as all those large pipes, we were actually pretty satisfied with that finding, as long as that property can be acquired for ponds in these general areas. And like I said, a lot of flexibility with that. The amount of new pipe is not that extensive, especially when we go back
Right.
and look at those figures 1 and 2 that show the extent of some of those pretty heavily impacted areas. So
Okay.
I don't know if I directly answered your question, but
I think so. I'm kind of always a future forward thinking person, so I know we've looked at, street projects and things like that, and I guess this is a question maybe for you guys, maybe even you, Jim, is this something that we can integrate other things in when streets are torn up? Would it be something to look at for that way, or is it just easier to go with one direction and leave that alone? Does that make sense?
Could be done on its own, and what we could do with the street project too, so.
Okay.
yeah.
I just
Yes.
don't want to put something in and then you have to dig it up later and then you got to pay again, and you could just get it all done.
Right, that's where the swale we know is gonna be in, and it's not gonna change anything, or the backyard drainage could go in at any
Right.
time.
Okay.
Some of those types of things.
And yeah, Nicole, I think to the extent that we can have this laid out and phased to where just those decisions can be made when streets are already being tore up, yeah, that's all the better.
Anybody have any other questions for them?
Like on figure 2, it's 100 years. Why are the red blocks where you've got structure, private structure, why are they kind of so scattered around? Most of those structures, the same elevation pretty much?
No, I heard you, Paul. I
Okay.
could hear you. Yeah, I mean, so really, and you're just talking all over the whole
Well,
map.
right, you got them all kind of scattered over, whereas most of those areas, you know, like especially on Main Street, they're kind of the same elevation there, aren't they? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, so for the most part, like on Main, the structures at risk are in areas where there's water backing up from whichever intersection all the water is trying to get to.
So it's underground is where they're at risk more, not above ground.
Well, it's above ground.
So what Nicole and I, when we sat through them, they said, is it 6 feet or 4 feet is what you're, there was a certain diameter.
Right, so when
that
we're-
they looked at the LiDAR
Yeah.
when it read it. And so it's just saying it could be a divot this big
Yeah.
that is low, but it picked up and said that it's low enough that if the water came up, it's gonna hit in there and hit that structure. So it could be small, it could be a little bit bigger, but it's saying if the water got to that level, it would hit a structure.
Yeah, so
Does that
like
make sense, Paul?
Yeah.
the surface that we're looking at, the resolution isn't such that we see like the grade away from a house. We kind of, it sees an elevation in a approximately 6 by 6 foot grid by that house. And so that's, initially when we started putting these together, we called these flooded structures, but that's not what they are. That we changed it to structures at risk because the way that we're looking at it, that's really all it's telling us is the blue is getting close to maybe even touching the outline of a structure. We don't know for sure if that means water's in it or not. It's just, it's darn close, so it's a structure potentially at risk.
Because if you look on Loyal Avenue, the one that gets hit is the one that we have had concerns or that residents have come and talked to about many times.
The rest of them are just kind of in a lower area, and there might be some low land between them and the street. You don't know if there's like 2 feet of dirt right next to the house that goes up. It's not going to touch the house. It's just to give you, it's not to identify every single property. It's just kind of show you which structures are.
Where's this water, where you got on Main Street, where you got the 84-inch and 60-inch, where's that water going now? Or how's it getting drained out of there, I guess maybe a better question.
Yeah, so today it essentially fills up all those intersections and they act as surcharge ponds or as detention ponds while the existing pipe slowly meters it, takes it out to the river. So the idea being, like in that alternative, once you start to upsize that pipe, add more inlets, now we get it into the pipe and to the river a lot faster. And so the amount of pooling and the depth of pooling at those intersections becomes significantly less. So yeah, it's getting to the same place today. It's just, before it does that, it fills the streets.
It's a time thing.
It's a time
It
thing.
sits in the street longer.
At what point does it get to rebuild? 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, depends on how fast it comes, or?
Well, that's where they looked at what a 5-year flood event would be and what a 100-year flood event.
Mhm.
And so if you look at this 100-year flood event, and if you think back when we had our storm in 2000, what was it, 16, 17? When we had that summer storm that came through and knocked trees down and everything and how deep it was. That's probably close to our 100-year event, so, and how long it took for it to get out and how much
Didn't
backed
bother
up.
me at all.
You don't remember?
No, I'm just being as smart as I said, it didn't bother me at all. I must be high enough.
We had 6-inch events.
Well, because there was one in September, not too many years ago, there was one in the
This
last.
is quite a ways back. April.
Once you start, once the water starts surging up onto the ground and spreading out, that's a lot of water, a lot of volume if you're gonna try sticking that into a pipe. So that's why the pipe sizes kept going up and up and up, just trying to figure out how to get all that volume. 'Cause, you know, if you're gonna have one little ditch cut, and you have water in it as opposed to being above ground and you're a foot deep and it spreads across the whole road, that's a lot of water to try getting into a pipe, and that's why the pipe sizes just kept going up.
Because that was that September, whenever it was, if you look over on the northeast, I do remember it coming all the way back up to just about to our house, backing up in the road. So I think that was a pretty close event, and it took,
Because that was probably in the last 4 or 5 years even.
right, it probably took
September, when we had.
until the next morning to get that water out of there.
Yeah, so, Paul, maybe to build on that a little bit, so a typical design standard for street function would be, it's typically to leave like a 10 to 12-foot drive lane open in the road during a 5 or 10-year storm. So that essentially means you not only have zero inundation at the center of the road, you're a few inches below it. So as we looked at developing these improvements, we sort of significantly stretched that standard and came up with a 0 to 6 inches of depth at the center. So we're essentially allowing water to still go over the center of the road, even up to 6 inches. So even though that's contrary to a standard or typical design standard if we were starting from scratch, the idea here was to balance safety, because one of the main goals there is maintaining access, especially for emergency services. But so balancing all of that with those pipe sizes, because I don't think there's any way we would have been getting the water another foot lower with constructible pipe sizes. I don't know if that helps at all.
And I don't think we have to make any decisions tonight. This is just for you guys to sit and think about, and then at the next meeting, we can decide,
Will we be getting any cost? Do we need cost estimates on anything, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, as we dial in, especially a recommended or a preferred alternative, I think that would be part of the idea to not only prioritize and document it, help prioritize and phase it, but to give at least very 10% level cost estimates.
So you'd kind of want us to try and narrow it down to 1 or 2 ideas of what we might want to do, and then you'd get those costs, or when, at what point would those, because I would think that would play into the decision on what you're doing, or am I wrong?
well, if we went with the pipe sizes, that one's going to cost us
Right.
exorbitant more than what just doing the ponds. But I think when they, if we added, maybe they can find the prices where if we're going to add a pond in on this section, this is what it's going to cost. If we add something in here in this section, this is what it'll cost. And so we can figure out what it's going to cost for each section we're going to do, and whether we can do it all at once or we're going to have to do it over time. For example, if it, maybe the swale's only going to cost us $20,000 to put it in, so then we know what that is, and then we can see what it's going to cost on Oil Avenue to put those drainages in the backyards. Maybe that'll cost $100,000, and this pond on 7th or 4th over by the softball complex is going to cost $300,000. But if we have to move it over to Main Street, it might cost us $500,000. So we can look at some of those costs, if that makes sense, depending on where we're going to put it. Or at the, if at the courthouse we can just do a surface pond and maybe it's only going to be $100,000, but if we got to do underground, it's going to be $350,000.
Priority is you better find out what your landowners are going to do.
Well, that's,
You get 3 landowners and say, no way.
well, that's part of my thing too, is
There's no sense in going through that whole process and not having land to put it.
right.
And that's where they're asking us to try to figure out if we're going to go that route, then we have to do some footwork to make sure that we can go that route and do some soft decisions as, if we did this, this is, are you agreeable to this? This is the route we're going to go.
Well, I may be wrong, but isn't that the first thing you actually have to do? Or am I wrong?
Well, I think that's kind of our
I
step.
think, yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
Right, so that's my point, is the first thing we'd have to do is find out if these people are even open to this.
But you guys have to decide if this is, you still have to decide if that's the route you want to go. You want to go, do you want to put 84-inch pipe in, or do you want to put the other pipe in? Or do you want to put the ponds in? That's the first decision, because then that sends us which way we're going to go.
Well, you've already said that it's substantially cheaper to the ponds, so it's a no-brainer that we do that. But we still got to be able to get the land, so.
Right. But you guys have to say that, yes, we want to go that route.
Maybe, one thing to add, a benefit to having some of those discussions while we're still working on this is, we're giving you two alternatives right now. Based on what's possible, we can hybridize those somewhat as well, right? So if you got into it, two of the ponds work, if it's just impossible to place a third one, we can still look at, okay, well, now you have to install those ponds, but you're gonna need more pipe improvements than we're showing now. And, you can bring that in then as a preferred, or the preferred alternative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I can see that a possibility where you might have one that'll, yeah, they're okay with it, but the other one, good luck, so.
I like the pond idea if you can get, if you can acquire the land.
Do we have to acquire the land, or do we just can they get, how is that? Do you have to actually acquire the land? You don't have to acquire it, do you? You just need to get an easement to do that, or how does that work?
Landowner, you can either get an easement from them if they don't wanna maintain it and stuff. If there's no use to them, maybe they wanna sell it to the city or.
So the preferred is to buy it.
Or if it's a situation where they need it as they're developing it, they need it as a side yard or setback area, and that can be developed into a side yard or setback, and they still maintain it, just an easement to give them that green area, buffer yard. All of a sudden, as soon as you sell it to the city, then your setbacks are all moved back to the other, that much farther.
Well, and the one over by the south there, you're looking at in an area of a potential street too, aren't you? If that's developed.
It's already set up.
Right, so like an extension of a second, that's all that we're talking about. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the odds, especially that pond, actually maintaining the exact shape shown, probably generally in that area with, yeah, like, we know that it's about 2 acres of about 6 feet deep at its deepest. So that, from the function standpoint, that's what we're looking at, is the volume provided by a 2-acre pond.
I guess I was looking more at the 3rd Avenue Southeast going to the east over there, where that school property is. If that was a through street there,
Sure.
that would have to.
That one would have to shift, yeah.
Okay. And that, what's the size of something like that? You're talking 1 acre and it's 4 feet depth, but what is it? North and south and east and west. Well, obviously east and west, it's the whole direction, but how far north and south? Are you talking a 12-foot?
Well, it all depends on if you get a pond the full length of the property or half the length of the property, it'll just work according to.
So if you got it the whole length, are you talking 12 feet? You talking 50 feet? You talking?
But the problem with it, Paul, is that that's with this current property where it's at. If anything goes on that property, that's gonna change, because now we're gonna have to account for all that drainage that's on that property. So that's gonna compound it.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking all these questions, because I know what could potentially put there, so we have to take that into account.
But we'll have to take it into account, but we have to make sure that there's a determination from the owners of the property of what they're gonna do with it before. That's gonna be the hard part. I know what you're saying. It's just, and the school was made aware when they started, because we started about the same time they started looking, and I made the school aware that they would have to look at putting a pond in if they're gonna develop on that property.
So you could potentially lengthen the 48-inch pipe, you could move that to the east more and just make the east side of that as a pond, maybe, potentially.
Could be.
Could put it over there instead of over here, you just have to run more
Or
pipe.
it could be a big bowl that the guys dump the snow in the winter time, so you just never know.
So,
A little bit of it.
but it definitely would Well, the pipe is gonna be there the whole length anyway, so it doesn't matter, right?
No. Pipe
What's
is
that?
just on the ends.
Oh, it is just on the ends, so you would be putting that pipe that whole distance. So that'd be,
Questions? Any other questions?
what's your thoughts, Jim?
Big ass pipe.
You won't see it though.
Going down the middle of the
You won't see it.
We could almost run a subway down in it.
Yep. Be a bomb shelter in a bad situation. We're gonna close down that summer.
Well, and there's that to consider too, how much street we'd have tore up and how much it'd affect the businesses as well. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions for them, appreciate your time and effort, and we'll give you some decisions after the next meeting.
Jesse.
And I'm sure Jesse Paul might have some more questions for you.
Oh, I don't know if you need my card, so if you think you're
Yeah.
and then maybe you should just send me an email and I can actually give you that soil.
Careful, I don't think I'm giving that card.
Thank you, Steve and Jesse. All right. Everybody should have in their packet the curb and gutter bids that Paul had added in.
It's probably on the computer. I don't think they make copies. Thank you. Jesse.
It's in the
Thank you.
You want to give that to Steve?
Can't make my computer still go, I forgot to plug it in. About 6 o'clock. Probably on that computer.
Think lasts a little while.
You guys got the shorter version than Nicole and I had.
Well, that's why I figured you had a lot of. So what are we going to, old business employee handbook, or what are we doing?
You're on.
Okay, so we're on, so we skipped employee handbook because we were right up here? Because we
Oh, yeah,
did
we
see.
did. I guess sewer update, we kind of did that with Steve up above, so.
Okay. So now how about number 6, are we going to do?
Number 6, yeah, we should probably go back to that, sorry. I was messed up because I looked at down there. As
That's
of
what we're all here for.
JR, do you have any updates on,
No new updates for me. Working on putting together the items as we discussed last time and some alternative measures. I did have a drive-by for the city meeting here, so I've seen the lack of progress on her behalf, so.
okay,
But there will be more updates come next meeting, and I know that the next court is with one of the Wednesdays in December, I can't remember,
it was like the 20th or something.
something like that.
Okay. The handbook, I don't know, did it get updated?
Yeah, it should have been a separate attachment.
God darn it, I didn't get.
So it's in the email.
It should.
Well, what, you said you did send an email on that?
Because I just had the financial statements in there.
Yep, I didn't include it in there. I should have had it separate.
And I just had the fund statements.
Oh, shoot, okay. Should have been on consent too.
Not that I want to hold it
I
off
never
any
saw it.
longer, but if not everybody had a chance to look with it. Had any of you guys able to look at the final draft of the employee handbook?
I never,
No,
I
you
haven't
haven't.
seen it, so.
Let- Okay, let's just put it on.
That
for the
doesn't
next
mean
meeting
anything,
that
because
way.
I don't see half of the things.
Right. I didn't see it either, so that was,
Mhm.
all right, the Steve is done. All right, so now I know that was in the packet. Paul asked that to go on, that's the curb and gutter for Caledonia, or for Main Avenue here.
So I'd mentioned that before, we'd had some estimates on, it. I think they had copies in there on what it would run. And I guess, I did touch base with Casey about where we maybe could get this from. I don't know if you were able to research into that, if you had any more time or not, as far as where that money could come from for that? No. But what we're proposing is fixing, if you didn't look at the map, it's basically right out here on Main Street and then down to the north, or up to the north, that section. It should show on your map there.
Which there would be funds in next year's budget that we planned for street improvements, as long as Jim knew that that was part of it, so then it could be planned right away.
That's what we were hoping. I said
Yep.
if anything else, sales tax might be applicable.
And I don't know what Jim's got all planned for next year, if that would be something that would fit into that or not.
You're talking $94,000 out of the street budget.
You know,
What improvements were?
What improvements were,
Or did we sign up improvements? 200?
I can't remember,
250?
somewhere around in there, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, I guess you could probably wait until see what happens this winter. I mean, we've got some numbers, one this for next year,
mhm.
and maybe rebid them again come next spring. We might find out we have to do Caledonia Avenue next year, you know, parts of that, so. I agree, I think it needs to be improved. It's just-
I'm okay with that.
The other thing too is that one of the names that I was given besides Allfish was Isaac. They're going to be in town next year doing that sidewalk. They're going to be able to go that good out of water, you know.
Correct. Okay. Anything else on that, Paul?
Nope, that's all I have.
Anybody else have anything to add to the agenda, or I think we caught everything else, correct? Or did we miss? Caught the... Right, that should have came off, I think it got missed. It was on one and off on the other.
We took it off.
It's on here, but it wasn't on the final one that I have that she emailed out, so. Does anybody in the audience have anything for the good of the order? Going once, going twice? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Nicole. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.